Nice.
Good job.
Right? Big note. Record. Oh, here he is. Here's Nicholas. I'll let him in.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hi,
Hello.
Nicholas. Oh, he probably can't unmute himself. Sorry, there you go.
I'm silent.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Okay, just a moment. Let me just close everything. Great. Okay.
Are we in
Yeah.
Italy?
No, I'm in Israel.
You're in Israel.
In this
My
crazy,
Yeah.
deeply
What a wonderful
troubled,
place to be in right now. Yeah.
one of the
My
most
goodness.
troubled places in the world. Yeah.
I'm on the board here of the Arizona Israeli Technology Alliance. I'm actually the chairman of the board.
Right.
And one of our board members was supposed to lead a delegation, and he's a public servant. He's supposed to lead a delegation to Israel in May, and he is canceling it because he see the rise of the Jewish supremacy.
Can you
And
imagine that? Yeah. Wow.
That triggered me. That was very challenging for me. But yeah, definitely. So big hearts to Hadassah.
Mm-hmm.
And excited to have you here today. We
I'm
have
very,
600.
very good to be here.
Yeah, so just to introduce you the team, this is all team members.
Hi.
Chandel is really our resident guide. She joined us just a few months ago. I mean, she's been with us, a guide with Guidely since the beginning, but joined the team about 6 months ago, I think, right, Chandel?
Yeah. Yep.
And Devin is our content manager and does all of our marketing.
Hello.
We've had it's lovely to put faces to you.
And Will is doing all of our customer support, working with clients and with guides on all tech issues. And Will's dad and I have been friends for many, many years.
Lovely.
And Gaia is my daughter. I don't think you've met Gaia, but she's my she's my
Great
baby.
to meet you, Gaia. Wonderful.
Yeah,
it's nice to meet you too.
20-year-old. And she's
Cool.
now living with me in the condo here in Phoenix. So definitely, and working in Guidely, she's doing all the social media coordination and stuff.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So we have, I think, 600 people registered. I haven't looked in a little bit.
Fantastic.
And
normally, how many of those do you expect to attend live?
So 10 to 15% has been our average. So that would be 60 to 90 people live. We typically don't do workshops at this time of day. Typically, we do it towards the end of the day,
Right.
because time zones and everything. We definitely. So we haven't tested that time in a while. So we'll see how that affects. It might be more effective. It might be less. I have no idea. So, and we incentivize people to join us live. We said we're gonna gift some leader as healer books to people that joined live. So we'll buy some books and give them away to.
Oh, wonderful! Thank you.
How many. So yeah.
Yes, good.
And Jamie is our chief of staff, so she really keeps track on me. So this is most of the Guidely team. We have some other. Shannon just got back to work and will be joining. And so yeah, And I gotta tell you, in preparing to today, I went back to read the book. Masterpiece, my friend. I'll say that live, but really so awesome. So I feel very humbled and privileged to have you with us today.
That's lovely. So let me also congratulate you all, because it's really amazing what you're doing. So big power to you all, really.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a journey. It's a healing journey.
Of course.
Nicholas, let me ask you really fast. How many breakout rooms, or how many people do you want in a breakout room when we do breakout rooms?
If we do breakout rooms, ideally just pairs, just
Okay.
2 people. Yeah.
Thank you.
And what would be great is if you make me co-host, then I can write to them, right, when they're in a breakout room.
So I did make you a co-host.
Oh, okay. Actually, you probably know the new thing in Zoom is you can actually speak to people when they're in the breakout room.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But it's a little weird. I've done.
So you sit in a breakout room and all of a sudden you hear a voice.
You hear this kind of, someone said it's like God speaking. No, we don't want that. So I prefer to write now. Yeah, I saw one day and I thought, yeah, I'm going to try it. But I was aware as while doing it, this might be a little weird. Hey, hi, Shannon.
Oh, she cannot. Oh, she will do this.
She's frozen. I think she's frozen. Yeah. Okay. So pairs, but I don't know if we'll get there. I think it may. I will definitely do a process exercise, but it will arise naturally out of our conversation.
Yeah, we definitely have.
It will arise naturally.
I have questions.
Very good. Yeah, and I have to say, I mean, I'm very happy with the book, and I'm already quite a bit further on from the book. So, I mean, not obviously, I can totally encompass the book, but I'm in a deeper and deeper learning.
Yeah, and it's not going to be necessarily just focused on the book. It's going to be focused on your work and
exactly.
So,
perfect.
That's great. So, how long are you in Israel for?
I've been here 2 weeks. I'm leaving on Saturday.
Oh, okay.
I'm back into traveling a lot, which I'm not that happy about, but clients are wanting it more and more.
Are you coming stateside anytime soon?
May is the plan. I'm doing a 3-day workshop with Bob Anderson in Salt Lake City. You know Bob Anderson, the founder of the Leadership Circle.
Oh, that's not far.
Yeah.
I live in Salt Lake, so.
Okay, well, it's a very special collaboration. Yeah. Amir, are you frozen or are you just in deep stillness? No, you froze from.
Yeah, I hope we're not eating up all the bandwidth.
Because of so many people coming.
I don't know. I mean, we're in a shared office space.
Okay.
And so I don't know. We'll see if we see that it's an issue. Then maybe.
Well, it would save if some of you turn your video off. That would save.
Right. Yeah.
Hi, Shannon. Great to see you.
Hi, Nicholas. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good.
Good.
Yes, you froze for a moment there.
Yeah, so I said if you're in Salt Lake, I will absolutely love to come and see you.
Okay, very good.
And
I'll send you the
Chandel lives in Salt Lake, so
she just said no. She said while you were
while I was on freeze.
while you
it's fight, flight, or freeze. Right? I was in freeze, I guess.
Right.
So wonderful. That's great that you'll only come for 3 days?
No, by wonderful coincidence, my Egyptian Oud teacher, that's the Oud.
He's in Santa Fe, right? Or
no, he's in Salt Lake City.
Oh, okay.
And we've been I've been studying with him 4 years, and we've been longing to meet. So That would be a lot. And then I don't know. I have
Yeah. Okay,
probably
so
a week afterwards.
the rest would be on
travel.
me. So
Anyway,
will you be willing to play for us some oud?
no.
No. Or djembe, I don't know, something.
No, it doesn't work.
No.
It doesn't work. I'm just actually going to turn the heating down. I've got it. It's cold. I've got it too high. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
So we have about 22 people in the waiting room.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I think we're go.
Okay.
All right, I'll let him in.
So
Everybody ready?
Are you ready, Nicholas? Can we
Yeah.
let people in? We have 24 people in the waiting room, and we're going to kick it
Good.
off.
Good luck. Enjoy.
Good morning and good evening, wherever you are in the world. We have a very diverse audience from different places. So excited to have everybody, so many familiar faces. Those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. My name is Amir Glogau, and I'm the founder and CEO of Guidely. And Guidely is the home for personal development and spiritual growth. We have a very vital and active community, and we help our community members and our friends and partners find guidance on their personal development journey. And as part of that, we're hosting those monthly, and actually more frequently recently, keynote events with people who think have real value and impact in the world where we live today, where we need more than ever guidance and ways to reunite. So welcome everybody. Would love to everybody to drop in the chat, where are you from? And maybe with one word, what are you looking to heal, or how do you feel right now? Emotions, anger, joy, creativity, what is it? Excitement. I'm excited. So our speaker today is my very dear friend, Nicholas Janni. I've known Nicholas for quite a few years, and have seen Nicholas blossom. I don't have a deepening his roots and blossom and making a greater and greater impact in the world. I remember when Nicholas shared when he was start writing this book that we're going to talk about, and the work that Nicholas does, Leader as Healer. I'll probably share that more than once today. So Nicholas is a coach of coaches, a public speaker, an author, and really a change maker, if I can say that. Work with senior executives all over the world, and he's an inspiration to me. So welcome, Nicholas Janni.
Thank you, Amir.
It
Delighted and honored to be here.
It is so wonderful to have you. Really, I feel humbled and fortunate to have you with us. And I know you're joining us today from not from Israel, right? You're in Israel right now. It's kind of funny that I'm here in the U.S. and you're in Israel. We missed each other by just a little bit, and I thought we maybe start this conversation with asking you if you're willing to share your upbringing, your family background. I kind of want to lead into how did you get to where you are today, but I want to maybe start by getting some background if you're willing to share.
Yes, sure. I've been thinking quite a lot about that, actually. So I was born in London, only child of a bipolar mother and a Holocaust traumatized father. That would be my headline. My father was an Italian Jew. My mother was an English woman, very brilliant English woman. I was born into a showbiz family, so celebrities were the regular house guests. My father was a very famous film producer. So that, that's the kind of ground in which I grew up. So high energy, very volatile, very unstable. And, it's obviously been a big healing journey for me to work with that. And at the same time, to bless the energy I received. My father was a mega creator and also an iconoclast. He broke rules. And so I'm very aware of the kind of multiple trauma and blessings I received from that background. Brought up in London as well, at a time when we were right in the heart of London, the swinging 60s, and it was a great place to be.
Yeah, the wild, not so west, but
Right.
West, yeah,
Right.
yeah. And at what point in your life did you have an awakening or the understanding that there is something beyond?
It happened in a very clear, defining moment when I was 16. And I was at school in London. I was regular, sex, drugs, and rock and roll school kid. London was great for all of that. And one school holiday, a friend of mine said, listen, my grandmother is a Tibetan Buddhist nun. And she lives in a Tibetan Buddhist monastery in Scotland. I'm going. Do you want to come? And it was kind of why not? It sounded different and exotic. It was a very small center then. It's now, I think, the biggest in Europe. It had been started by a guy called Chogyam Trungpa, who became very, very well known. So up we went to this house in Scotland with Tibetan lamas, and it was all very strange and challenging, and hours of meditating. And halfway through the week, I was sitting, someone gave me a classical Buddhist text to read. And I was sitting on my bed reading it, and it was like a curtain open. And I totally knew the truth of this text. It was extraordinary. And it literally changed my life. Because from then on, that was my primary interest in every way. Yeah, so that's my answer.
So I have a visceral reaction to what you're saying. I have goosebumps in my body. Not sitting next to you, I still feel that. I wanna ask you if you're willing to zoom in on the word "I knew." Like, what does that mean to you? How do you know what happens in you?
That's a beautiful question. The world changes. It's like I went from this naturally small understanding and perception of the world that I was naturally in to this vast picture. And my reality changed in that moment. And I knew that that's how things really are, and that the small picture we're in is indeed a small picture that we're conditioned into. And that we have to, if we're, once we understand that, we have to devote everything to living into that bigger picture. And of course, then starts the real journey with all the complications and by tracks and and I met some great teachers in my time, each of whom were very big figures in my development, and most recently in particular, And of course, like I think many of us, it took me a very long time to be ready to work with trauma. And that's now a central pillar in my work. I really believe we have to, I've been describing it in a very particular way, which is that there are two parallel streams we have to engage. One is the meditative. One is where we open these higher levels of feeling and perception. And this one is the trauma work, personal, ancestral, and collective. And it's the least done. But if we don't do it, it's not in balance. And just last week, I was reading a recent text by Ken Wilber, who I'm sure everyone knows, and he calls it waking up and growing up. It's exactly the same thing. And it's very problematic if we only work with the waking up.
Yeah.
Because actually we can wake up, even if there's still a lot of unprocessed trauma in us, but the whole way it shows up gets very distorted.
Yeah. It's we are in that spiritual development space, and oftentimes I would see spiritual leaders that offer what I would call spiritual bypass, and I think
Exactly.
and I know it can serve, and it can feel good, and it can serve something in the moment, but not necessarily a sustainable effect on our journey. Exactly.
Yeah, I agree entirely. And I think spiritual bypass I was in it for a long time. It can be very seductive as well, because you can feel this kind of peace and equanimity and so on.
Elation.
But it's an elation, and it's a perfect way to avoid the understandably difficult work of working with our emotional body and so on and so forth. So in the last 5 years, that's when I really, really did that, learned to do that. So when I work with senior leaders, I make clear to them we're doing both those. And if they're ready to do it, we go on an incredible journey.
So I'm really curious about the work you're doing, but I want to continue for a few more minutes on the foundation. So 16 years old, fork in the road from sex, alcohol, drugs, whatever, to Tibetan scripture that opens it up for you. Where do you take it from there? Like, what teachers, what do you do?
Yeah, well, yes, if I remember, I was looking for the texts, the teachers that would speak to this. So for a while, Carlos Castaneda was huge. I mean, younger people now probably won't even know who he was, but he was an iconic figure. I used to get his books, and then I had this friend, and we would go like to the mountains, and we would run down very steep slopes as fast as possible to get into altered states. I mean, it was like a devotional quest. Alan Watts was a big figure, the way of Zen. And then really what happened then was I was always going to go into the arts because of my father. But because he was in film, I think I went into the theater. I couldn't follow him. And just before
had to be a rebel.
Yeah, I mean, that's a complication in itself. Just before I studied my 3 years of theatre at university, I came across by chance, although as we know, there's not much that's by chance, two big names in the theatre who were writing about how theatre could be a spiritual path. And it was such a relief. So, in a nutshell, I then spent the next 20 years researching what happened when actors really opened, and when they would become like channels and emotion and impulse would literally pour through them and through every cell of their body. And it was just an amazing research. It's called like the zone in sports, or total flow state. These are the kinds of words we use, but it's very particular in the artistic context because it has to be transmissible to the audience. It's not just a personal experience. So I literally researched that for 20 years. I had my own company. I taught at some of the main drama schools in London. And it was, again, a very, very devoted research. And I also trained as an actor for 3 years in that approach, which was it was very intense, and I loved it. I never thought I would leave the arts.
And what made you take that
Well,
turn?
again, it was things happened that for instance, I was part of the group that opened Shakespeare's Globe Theatre in London. And if any of you haven't been there, it's really an amazing theatre. It's an amazing way to see Shakespeare. And during it, my best friend directed it, a guy called Richard Olivier, who was son of Laurence Olivier, Olivier. And during the whole rehearsal period, we got invited to work with a group of public service leaders exploring the story of Henry V. And they were like on fire with this. They said, we've learned more in these 3 days than in all the management training we've ever done. And it lit a kind of flame in us. So we were also deeply in the men's movement. This all sounds historical now, like Robert Bly, and there was a whole thing. We used to bring them to England, and they always used stories. So we had that understanding that if you had a powerful story, it was a terrific kind of framework to really go deep. So we started exploring that with Shakespeare, and we were supported by a business school in England. And for a few years, we were really working with this, and we got really good at it. And we got more and more work. And at one point, Richard said to two of us, let's create a consultancy here. We're really enjoying this. We're clearly very good at it, and it's clearly having a big effect. And to be honest, we were ready to stop working with, we used to have a joke, that we used to work with neurotic actors. We prefer now working with neurotic leaders. Self-centered neurotic actors to self-centered neurotic leaders. No, we just got interested in working with people who had real power and seeing that our work, it was very unusual. We were ahead of the game. This was 2001. Not many people were doing what we were doing. And we were really good. We had an incredible reputation. We grew and grew. We were working all around the world. And then about 8 years ago, I left. It was time for me to leave and just totally do my own thing, basically.
That's the path of one person to a journey of openness, and I don't want to just use enlightenment or really being connected and holding space the way you do is always inspires me, and seeing the different stepstones on the journey. So I wanna maybe dive a little bit more to the book, and then maybe we take a little bit of a step back. But I want to start with saying that for me, you represent the word presence. You are a reflection of the word presence. I don't know that I know anybody that holds space in such a beautiful, sacred, powerful way for anything that comes to you. And I've had the privilege of working with you, and I could not be a bigger supporter. And I think that you call the book Leader as Healer.
Mm.
And I want to talk about what is a leader and what is a healer. But it feels like this is a manual of becoming fully present.
Mm.
Do you agree?
I do agree. Yes, I do. And I see it in a bigger and bigger context, actually, because I think unless we have our head in the sand, we understand that I think in bigger cycles more and more, or in bigger kind of pictures, that humanity is at a big crisis point.
Right.
And to me, one thing I feel more and more in tune with in my consciousness is that although there are many, many differences of cultures which we can enjoy and celebrate, we've got very, very distracted by that. We are actually one species, and we all human beings are fundamentally similar. And the work of waking up, the work of becoming more present is universal. It's not in any way to do with cultures. It's a fundamental human journey, and the lack of it in the world is exactly why we're in such a precipitous point, which is very dangerous at the moment. So I would agree with you that the book is the manual of what presence means. And would you like me to say what I mean by presence?
Yeah, please. I was going to ask, first of all, you're showing us, but also, what does it mean to you to be fully present?
Well, first of all, let me say it's an unfolding journey. So it's a never-ending, deepening journey. So what does it mean for me at this point in time? It means that the simplest definition is I'm here and I'm available. Now, I'm here for me means I'm deeply embodied. I've worked to break the disconnection that we are all in from our bodies. I feel deeply embodied. My emotional body is open. I feel my feelings and I feel your feelings. My intuition is open. My thinking is very open, but it's not the dominant part of me. It's one part of me. And above all, I'm resting in a deep quality of being, which has a very spacious feeling. And out of that comes my doing. It's like a bowl of being and an arrow of doing coming out of the bowl. And that arrow can go very fast, and it can be fierce, or it can be very gentle. That depends what's needed. But it is always, I'm located inside in a sense of deep being, which is I'm here. And then I'm available means that my perceptual, my attentional capacity is very big. So I'm noticing a lot. I'm feeling a lot, both of what's happening in me and of what's happening around. And I believe we live mainly in a culture of absence. I think we don't often relate in a way where we could honestly say, I feel you while you're talking, and I feel you feeling me. I think many, many conversations happen in a very reduced presence, if not kind of absence. And it also means that I'm available to higher levels of wisdom, of intuition, of insight, of knowing. That's also to be available. And a leader who we could also say it's a coherence of body, mind, heart, and soul. And so a leader who begins to embody that holds a very deep space. And we'll know, for instance, how to have meetings where instead of trying to fix everything immediately, because there's such a discomfort with unknowing, can hold a much deeper space, which also includes people's emotions. This is a big part of the book. We have to be much more unconditional. We have to stop thinking nothing needs healing or fixing. This is a radical and difficult principle, because we're always trying to fix things. We're always trying to get somewhere other. I don't like feeling fear. How do I stop feeling fear? How do I stop feeling sad? That just makes more and more fragmentation. You know, we need to be able to say, I feel sad. And you need to be able to say, yeah, I'm with you. It's okay. Because then it passes, it moves. And then we're coherent. So teams who start to embody this go into a I love working with teams, because teams go into a completely different level of connection and of openness. And they start having all these ideas, which they would never have thought of before, because if you're dominated by your mind, you don't think in a creative way. You just go round and round in circles. So all of this is part of my answer to your question, or the question I asked, if you would like to ask me. Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It made sense, and I have seen you live that way. I have seen you show up that way in many different ways, and it's really inspiring, because the conditioning that we live in really brings us to respond or show up in a way that is really not necessarily elevated or not necessarily present. And you know, I fall oftenly in the trap of becoming defensive or becoming frustrated or angry, and I know that when I do that, it's just because I was not really fully present to myself and to whoever was in front of me. And,
Exactly. Yeah, and I think, and actually, even though I do work mostly with leaders, a lot of the people I work with, it's easily as applicable in their home life. Yeah, and in many ways, that's more important. When someone realizes, oh, you know, I don't really listen to my children. And now I realize I don't really listen to my children. That's as important as anything.
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, I don't listen to myself.
Of course.
Right? I'm not present for myself, for what is right for me. What do I need right now? How do I create more space so that I can really show up to my partners, my co-leaders, my, you know, significant other, my beautiful Shannon here, my daughters, to really show up in a way that is present, that holds space for myself as well as for anybody that I'm interacting with.
Right. And for me, a very big part of that is rewriting our relationship to emotion, because that's where we often most fragment. We got so used to not feeling, and we got so used to thinking of some emotions as wrong or negative, and that just creates more and more fog and more and more fragmentation. In some ways, that one of the phrases I use a lot now in my work, it's very kind of central, is we have to get out of our narrative. That so much of the time we're talking about, we're in a narrative about things, about myself, about each other, and it's out here, because actually me is here. And so one of the most important things we all have to practice is, how do I talk from here? How do I feel what's happening inside me and articulate that, not as a narrative, but as I feel a little bit sad. I notice I feel a bit sad. Oh, I can feel some anxiety in me. let me feel that, let me feel that. It's related to this. But we have to be careful, because the moment we say why, we go into narrative. You know, it's very common. People will say, yeah, I do feel anxiety because, and then the because leads to, I'm already separate. I've already go into a narrative. This is very fundamental and very challenging, very, very challenging, to hold the space to be really true, unconditionally true. And the richness of that is infinite. And also to have a space where we can feel some of the things that are most excluded, things like lost, or hopeless, or despair. Things that we will do everything possible not to feel. And yet in a safe enough space, in a group or in one-to-one, people can actually stop fighting those feelings. It's amazing what happens. It's so counterintuitive. There's such a relaxation. And it passes. We don't get stuck in it. The moment I can say, you know what, I feel helpless in this scenario, and we accept the feeling, yeah, a lot opens. And we do feel helpless. We are helpless in the face of what's happening in the world. We're helpless.
Yeah.
And it's pointless to try and stop being helpless. It's pointless. It's the far deeper intelligence. They can let me embrace that part of me, because anyway, it's only part of me.
Yeah. So I'm really, feel the desire in me to go into the other side of feeling the feeling and to see what's the impact, but I want to stay with it for a second. And I think you share a story in the book about asking a group of people if they believe that fear stands between them and something.
Or
so
if it blocks them.
Maybe we
if
can
it
ask
blocks them, yeah.
If that blocks them. Yeah. So I want to ask here if you guys feel that fear blocks you from accomplishing something. If you want to drop in the chat and want to share with us your response.
Do you think fear is an obstacle?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it blocks your path in some way?
I think part of what part of the beautiful, and I want to address the answers.
Yeah, right. You see, we have an almost 100% agreement that fear blocks us.
100% success rate. Yeah.
Well, you see, my core message is it absolutely doesn't. What blocks us is that we block the feeling of fear.
Right.
That's what blocks us. And then we think, oh, fear blocks me. No, it doesn't. I can guarantee you that if you, and this I'm speaking to everyone who said, it doesn't. I'm reading all of these things. It doesn't. Because if you feel safe enough with someone like me or any other mentor, and you start noticing, yeah, I feel quite a deep anxiety. And I say to you, just, if it's okay, just allow the feeling. Just breathe and allow the feeling in your whole body or wherever it is in your body. And you agree to do that. And you agree. And I say, how's that happen? What do you feel? And you track the process. You stop trying to explain it. You stop trying to do anything other than just allow it. I guarantee you, because I have seen this hundreds of times, within 5 minutes, 10 minutes maximum, you are going to feel super open. Your whole body will feel alive and you will feel deeply peaceful. So don't tell me fear blocks you. No, you block fear. And in blocking fear, you become like that. So of course, then it blocks your spiritual gifts, or it blocks your way forward, because you're like that. I don't want to feel my fear. I hope I'm being a bit dramatic, but I hope my point is clear. It's such a misunderstanding. It's such a misunderstanding. It's the same with sadness. Oh no, I prefer to feel happy. No. First of all, if you can't feel sad, you'll never feel joy. Secondly, feeling sad opens our heart. I tell all the leaders I work with, you need to watch the news, and on a reasonably regular basis, you need to feel heartbroken. And if you don't, that's a problem. That's a problem. We need to watch the news and every so often be in floods of tears at what's happening. And if we're not, we're numb. And that's dangerous. Numbness is dangerous.
Yeah, nothing
Yes,
like
you
watching
see,
the
I
news
just
to
want
feel.
to, there's beautiful comments. Laura says, I recognize and sit in my fear, but I don't embrace it. I'm trying to transform it. That's perfectly put, Laura. That's the problem. We try to do something with it because we don't trust life. We don't trust just feeling it. And so we immediately become two. We become the feeling that's arising in me, and then this me that wants to do something with it or transform it. The other thing I would say to Laura, just because I have that question, that comment on my screen, is we need to do it in relation. It's very important. We need to be received in our feeling. This is really critical. And almost all our personal trauma originates exactly in the fact that that we were not received. That let's say we were 5 years old and I got scared and I went to my mama or my father and I said, I'm feeling really scared. Maybe they were doing something else and they didn't have time. Maybe they said, oh, well, there's no reason to be scared. Why are you scared? No, that's not okay, because my whole emotion is already not being received. So what do I do in that moment? I stop my emotion. It's not okay to be scared. That's the beginning of trauma. Because then I'm carrying that contraction inside me.
Yeah. We hosted Dr. Gabor Mate.
Okay. I love his work.
Twice actually, and he shared a beautiful story about his upbringing and his childhood, and talked about, today's world, parents are being taught, to let their kid cry, to let them, soothe themselves, and talks about how, traumatic that can be for a child if a parent doesn't attend,
Exactly.
and
Of course.
really provide that space and safety for them.
So we can, you see, that's why when we do that for each other, that you tell me you're feeling fear, and instead of trying to make you feel better, I just say, yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. We're healing already. That's already healing, because it's giving our nervous system what it didn't have enough of in the past. It's genuinely healing just to really feel received in whatever I'm feeling.
I met Neil Donald Walsh a couple months ago. Conversations with God, and he was sharing he said the best love story movie he had ever seen doesn't have the word love in it. And the movie he talks about is Avatar, and he says the word is I see you.
Yeah, exactly.
I see you.
Exactly.
And yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
and when I feel seen,
Mm,
then I feel love, I feel healed.
exactly.
And this is true with family, friends, leaders, anybody.
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
ability to feel seen
One of my
and to see each other.
great mentors once said, love is an unconditional yes to whatever is arising, whatever emotion, whatever state. It's the ability to just say, I'm here. That's love. I'm with you. I'm with you. I see you. I feel you. Absolutely.
That's beautiful. So I wanna. This is good. It feels I'm ready for some more. So it's one of the things that you're talking about, and I've recently was exposed, read the book, really interested in the IFS, in the internal family systems method. And one of the things you talk a lot about in the book is the integration of our different parts and of the different emotions and the different elements of who we are to all, you said bring it from here to here. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because I think somewhere in the book you talk about recognition, integration, and restoration. And the most overlooked part is really restoration. But I wanna maybe go through those 3 steps of how do you identify something, integrate it within you, and then restore, because the restoration is just as important and in many cases overlooked.
Yeah, thank you, Amir. So the recognition is, one of the most powerful tools we have, which I think we need to endlessly develop, is our capacity, our attentional capacity, our capacity to pay attention. That already breaks the narrative, because the moment we really pay attention, we're less in narrative. So the recognition begins with, I can notice what's happening inside me. And then we start to share that. And then we can often recognize the different composition of what's happening. Sometimes what's happening is very high spiritual states. But we share that, and those grow as we share them in dialogue or in a group. And then on this stream, of course, often what's happening is emotional parts, and it's often not so clear at first. That's why talking and being with someone is so important. Now, then we can, again, with skill and practice, we can often begin to recognize, so what I'm feeling right now is definitely related to now. It may also have a very young part. Like this may be a sadness that goes back to many, many years. Then it gets even more rich when we can begin to work and realize this has an ancestral part. Meaning part of what I'm feeling now was actually passed down to me. It came down to me. Because whatever was not processed in our parents and grandparents exists in the system as frozen energy. Let's say something happened to our parents and there was big grief, but it was never processed. In previous generations, they didn't talk much about emotions. So they just froze it and then continued living. That comes down to us. And we can begin to understand that a whole part of our experience now is still shaped by that. I can give examples of this. And then sometimes we understand that there's even a collective part that's shaping my experience now And I hadn't even realized. A very clear example of that. Now, I've had the privilege of coaching two African American chief executives. One of whom, they're both actually in very big jobs. One is in a huge company, head of a huge company, 150,000 people. But as we've worked, and it was, at least a year's work together, in both cases, there would be moments when we would pay attention to their experience now, and then it would be like taking an elevator down, because it's like we'd go down a layer and we'd suddenly hit this emotional feeling in them. For instance, in one of them, it was a kind of terror that something would happen, and she was bothered by it, as one would be, but we could feel that at the core of this being bothered was a much bigger, almost like an ocean of terror, threat. Life is really dangerous. And according to my methodology, we feel that together, and we don't try and heal it. We just say, let's feel that in the body, because then the body alchemizes it. In the other case, who was a man, mega successful man, but carried a certain type of insecurity. It had symptoms, but we realized at one point that deep inside, he carried the feeling of, I don't have the right to sit at the table I sit at. And he was on the Federal Reserve and all these kind of, but deep inside, a part of him thought that was a collective layer of trauma. This is the amazing composition of who we are as human beings. And once we start to work with all of that, that's when real development and healing takes place. So that's the integration, that we meet these parts and we integrate them by feeling them. That's why I say they don't need fixing. You can't fix that. You can agree to feel it. And the restoration actually happens naturally after that. I've been through that very personally with my father. My father was an Italian Jew in Milan. At the beginning of the war, Italian Jews in Milan started to be sent to the camps. Seeing this, his father agreed to an operation that he knew would kill him. So it was a kind of suicide. And then one day, my father and his mother were told by a friend, in 2 hours' time, they're coming to take your passports. I got chills in my body as I say that. Can you imagine? You have to leave now. You have to pack and leave. So he left, and he never went back to live in Italy. And he never addressed that. He was tormented inside. I mean, he became a mega creative figure living on top of this torment. So 4 years ago, I bought a home in Puglia in South Italy for many reasons. But part of it, it's been, we have 70 olive trees. It's a real little piece of heaven. And I go out sometimes into the olive trees and I say out loud, Father, I'm bringing you home. It's very emotional. It's very emotional. And it feels that there's a healing taking place. I've also cried buckets for what he experienced, with the tears he could never cry. When I've connected with what it must have been like for him to leave suddenly this amazing city, I've cried buckets, his tears. That's also how ancestral healing takes place. And of course, in the process of that, my whole system opens and settles as well.
That's really a profound, first of all, thank you for sharing that story. It's really touched me.
Mm.
My dad during the Holocaust was a young kid that was sedated and smuggled out of Austria with his brother, without his mother. After he's died, his father passed away before my dad was born, and for sure he had never processed that trauma, and that. So I cried my own buckets. I don't think I cried my dad's buckets. So I might it inspires me to look at that and maybe bring in some more buckets. But
I think it's a very important part of our development when we're ready and willing to feel what was the experience of our parents. Even if, we may have to do a lot of work on how we suffered as a kid and whatever. But there's a point where it's very liberating and very healing for the whole system that we actually become willing to feel them, what they went through. Which in many cases, it doesn't have to be a Holocaust, but I don't know many family stories that were not difficult. When someone says I had a really happy childhood, I think, really? It's like it's a kind of fairy story in a way. I mean, most of our ancestors in some way had difficult experiences and didn't have the capacity to process them.
I deeply agree with that, and it shows up, one time after time. Even the people that feel the most, it's just a way to disengage from doing the work, if you will. My mother, as opposed to my dad, was born in Morocco and had, totally different type of teenage childhood trauma. So it's really profound. I will definitely. And you talked a lot about embodiment, and it's something that I'm more and more interested in how to use the body to really identify what's happening before the brain takes over, right? I mean, how do we intercept and really identify, through the body, where do we hold tension and where do we? And I'd love for you to maybe share what you use to embody the emotions and really use our so sophisticated system to sense and experience.
Yeah. Well, from a very early time in my life, basically when I started working in the theatre, and following this particular methodology I followed, we did really intense work with the body for years. So I had a very solid foundation. Then I did a lot of yoga. Currently, my very almost daily practice is Qigong, which I learned from a wonderful master in Santa Fe. That suits me very well at the moment, because it really opens the subtle energy flow in the body. It's not so much using the body as coming back into the body. That's how we're supposed to be. I'm fairly sure of that. And it's how we were as children. Because as children, every moment to moment, our body we felt everything in our body. And that's the return. That's a restoration as well. It's like, why do we love great musicians live, whether it's classical or jazz or rock? One of the reasons, I believe, is because we see someone feeling everything in their body, right? And that has a transmission to us. I think that's one of the purposes of live performance, that you see an individual or a group in this totally physicalized version of life.
Immersed.
And it's a joy to witness that. You see, even Itzhak Perlman, who's got polio, in this wheelchair, his body is totally, every cell is feeling the Beethoven. And it's just, we get a huge energy from that. So I believe that's how we're all supposed to be. And we have to work at it. We have to work at it. And I also do cardio. I love biking and so on. But I do it in an embodied way. You know, like when I see people running with headphones in, I'm like, I tell all my clients, take your headphones out. Feel the world. Breathe. Listen to the sounds. Be embodied when you're doing cardio. It's, you know, if you go to a gym, what you tend to see is people doing things to their body. And that's an expression of our fragmentation. We have to feel our body. We have to become one in our body. It's a return. But it has huge benefits, because not only do we feel more at home in ourselves, we feel more grounded. We also, the body is a huge source of wisdom. Because when I feel, I mean, when I'm working with clients or with a group, I am feeling everything in my body. Everything. That's how I feel what's happening in the room. That's how our body is supposed to be, and we're far away from that. You look at any indigenous tribe, you see an example of what it means to know the world through your body. So we lose a lot of intuition. Intuition is rooted in the body. I have a friend who's very psychic, genuinely, and I asked her, how does she get these insights? She says, it's in my body. It's in my body. Everything is in my body.
I have a dear friend cited that I asked the same question, and she said, I get out of the way.
Beautiful as well. Yeah, exactly. That's also true.
Which is the same thing, by the way. It's
that's another aspect.
Two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, I have to get out of my narrative and listen, and be deeply empty.
Yeah,
that's something our culture has got no time for.
Yeah,
we fill it all the time. We don't even like silence. When I work with teams, they often start to begin their meetings with 2 to 5 minutes meditation. I mean, in the corporate world, that's unusual. And they do it because they realize that once they do that, they have a much better meeting instead of this endless narrative. And
yeah, I've actually done that a few times, and in the most sarcastic environment, it was actually well received, surprisingly well received. So,
Right.
So Nicholas, on the other side of recognition, integration, and restoration, and on the other side of feeling the feelings and being fully present, what is the promised land? You know, what happens on the other side to leaders that really show up fully embraced and immersed in whatever they're doing for each other, for themselves? What's available there?
I think what's available is cultures of great connection, great connectedness, ultimately much deeper satisfaction because of that. And probably most importantly, a natural leaning into how are we contributing? How are we serving? Instead of what are we taking? I mean, if you ask me to really condense it, it would be that. Yeah. And that people feel that work is a place to be deeply human and deeply inspired.
Yeah.
You know, people spend most of their waking hours at work, the majority of their waking hours at work. So there is a possibility of a radically different culture. And that's the promise, and it really needs a lot of commitment. But I have to say, I do see amazing results. when people really take this on. And I'm very touched by what I hear. Even if I work 2 days with a team and 6 months later, the head of the team says, we're still talking about what happened, it still affects us. That's wonderful.
And you work with leaders from all over the world that really impact people on a large scale in very different places and scenarios, and it's really profound way. I've actually watched you facilitate a workshop here, participated in one of your workshops here, and one of the women you talked about earlier was there with her mom, and
that's right.
I was blown away by the transformation that both of them went through in real time, and knowing that she, with her role that she's in, taking that and then affecting so many people is really profound. So thank you for your work.
Well, thank you. You know, she's the one who wrote the quote on the cover of the book.
I know.
So I know. It's been an extraordinary privilege to work with her.
Yeah, she's amazing. She really is amazing. So I want to, before we open this up for questions, maybe I want to remind everybody that towards the end of the workshop, we'll drop a link here where you can fill in your details and get a chance to win a book, Leader as Healer, that we're going to purchase and deliver to you. So I want to ask Nicholas, this feels like a book that is meant for everybody. And it's still called Leader, and it's still called Healer. And I want to, do I need to be a healer or a leader to read this book, or is it really for everybody? What is your definition of a leader?
Right. Well, that's an interesting question. I do think it's for everybody, because I do think we're all leaders in a natural way, in the sense of we have an influence on everything we do and everyone we meet. And of course, part of my calling, or not a part, a deep part of my calling, is to work with people in leadership positions because of how much influence they have. So I would say both are true.
Right.
Both are true. And I think we really need to rewrite how we lead in corporations, because there's way too much toxicity.
Yeah. So first of all, organizations, from my experience as a leader myself who have and is leading different organizations, I can tell you that sometimes the leader is actually not the one with the title or the bots in the org chart in one place or another. It can be sometimes the youngest team member that have 4 levels up to report before he gets to any senior level. It really shows leadership. And in many cases, those are actually also the healers, because they actually speak from a place of less conditioning and the more neutrality. So I definitely feel that this book is for everybody, whether you are a senior executive or not, whether you
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And if I may, I would love to, because it's also a very practical book. We need practice. And there are kind of some foundational practices that I could very briefly touch on now, if that would be okay.
That would be great.
And then we open up the Q&A. Yep. So, for everyone who's watching now, or indeed will be watching the recording, you can have your eyes open or closed, but I want to invite you to start to drop your attention down into your body. Your attention, not your thinking. What does that mean? Let's start with the breathing. That you just start to notice everything that happens each time you breathe in and each time you breathe out. You notice all the sensations that arise without needing to understand them. And by the way, your thinking will be continuing. You just let it be a bit in the background, because you are choosing where you direct your attention. So you're noticing the in-breath, you're noticing the out-breath, how it's different each time. You're noticing sensations that arise in different parts of your body. And then one little subtle intentional addition is see how it is to gently relax your out-breath. Just allow your out-breath to be longer, softer. So you may have a sense that you drop down more as you do that, meaning you feel you're sitting more. You let go with the out-breath in a very tangible, physical sensation inside. You feel a stronger contact with your chair. You can take your attention down into your legs. And with each out-breath, just a very subtle softening. You feel your legs more. You feel your feet. You feel the contact of your feet with the floor. And then you feel that you notice that the whole of the lower half of your body, from your waist down, through your pelvis, through your legs, down to your feet, this is like a base, foundation. And each time you breathe out, it's like you settle more into this feeling of your base, physical foundation. And at the same time, your spine sits comfortably straight. This is very literal sensation practice, noticing the sensation. And if you have your eyes closed, or if you have your attention should be, like 90% inside your body, even if you have your eyes open, then consider the possibility that you could pay attention just as much as you are at the moment, internally. And without diminishing that, you could at the same time pay attention to the world around you. You could start with sounds, for instance, that you're noticing your breathing, you're noticing the whole inner feeling of your body, and at the same time you're hearing sounds just as they are. And the two are just one attentional field, inner and outer. And then if you have your eyes closed, or if you're not paying much attention to looking, you can gradually open your eyes and look around you. And notice how you can hold your attention inner and outer at the same time. Your thinking is just in the background. You're really practicing your attentional capacity right now. And then we can come back and look at the screen. And as you look at the screen, you're still feeling your body, your breathing, you're noticing sensations in your body. So one vital pillar of living in presence is this capacity of dual attention, let's call it inner and outer at the same time. It's mentioned in various traditions as a core practice. And then we can add something on top of that which helps anchor this, which is something I learned a long time ago from a Zen master. And he said that at any one moment in our life, we're either on a forward circle or on a backward circle. And then he always said, if you're on a forward circle, get off it. Because a forward circle means I come up and I come out and I go towards the world like that. And I think that's listening. No, it's not. It's actually I leave myself. Backward circle is I come back with my attention. My attention comes down and I'm here. And I receive the world, and I have a very open, attentional perception. And many people I work with find that a very helpful metaphor, because a lot of the time we're on the forward circle, which has doing, and out, and I cease to really be here. So the dual attention and the backward circle are two foundational pillars of committed practice 24/7. How are you feeling, Amir?
I feel great. I feel grounded in my body, present, and definitely feel great. Thank you.
Beautiful.
So if anybody in the audience have any questions that they want to bring up, please raise your hand, and Chandel will help facilitate. I think we need to unmute you and then bring you, pin you, so we can see you on our screens. I want to say that from the way I know you, you're a really rare and unique example of walking the talk, joyfully, with music, with activity, like physical, whether it's dance or walks, and also, so as much as Nicholas seems very deep and serious and present right now, I can tell you that there is a little child that is very playful and hike mountains like a mountain goat, and with a lot of laughter and joy and youth and vitality in him. So it's
absolutely
the bringing all of those elements together is really a beautiful gift. You're an inspiration.
Thank you for saying that. I get very serious when I'm teaching or talking, but yeah. I'm very humorous actually, and love to laugh and play.
Yeah. There is an Italian in you. You can't help it. So
great.
Beautiful, wonderful. Decha, thanks for having the courage and raising your hand. And where are you from, Decha?
Just unmute.
Hello, everyone.
Namaste.
It's good to see you all here. And thank you so much for this uplifting and enlightening workshop. I'm in Sunnyvale, California, Northern California.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And earlier, Nicholas was talking about stopping the narrative. For example, I'm sad. And as soon as you say because, you're starting the narrative with yourself. So my question is, how do we approach that? How do we get out of that narrative?
Yeah, beautiful, Daksha. I think that's where it's really essential that we support each other. It's more difficult on our own. But if we create these listening relations, whether it's one-to-one or in a group, it can be much, much easier that someone says, no, tell me the because. Just take a moment to feel the sadness, and supports you to do that. And we choose to do that. There is also a moment where we have to choose internally. It's like a surrender in a way. Okay, I'm willing to feel right now. And because I feel the support of one person or two people who are fully with me, that's essential. Alone, it's much more difficult. So the building of those relational communities is really essential. I think that's a very important part of Sangha. Okay, we may meditate together, and that's very important. And we also need to have this emotional capacity to be with each other and to be unconditional with each other. If you're feeling sad, I just want to be with you. I don't want to stop you feeling sad. If I do, that's most probably because I'm uncomfortable with sadness. No, I really want to be with you and intimate with you in your sadness. So if we give each other that quality, that goes a long, long way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dacha. And Don, oh my God, this is, and Don will join us in a second. I wanna remind ourselves what the definition of namaste, because I feel like I wanted to bring it up earlier when you mentioned something and Dacha said namaste, and it's my soul honors your soul. I honor the place I honor the place in you where the entire universe resides. I honor the light, love, truth, beauty, and peace within you, because it is also within me. In sharing these things, we are united. We are the same. We are one. And I think that's the quality of presence you talk about, where, you know, I feel myself, I feel you, I see you, and this brings us together. And in such a toxic and divided era we live in, I think namaste is a good blessing for unity.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Hi, Dawn Johnson.
Hello.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi. Wonderful.
Are we
meeting
doing
you.
a walking
This
meditation?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. My favorite method, out in nature. So
Where are you at, Dawn? It looks beautiful.
I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Just
So
around the block.
Yeah. We're finally getting some warm weather. But anyway, yeah, like we don't have it here. But anyway. So I was a change agent, well, still am, brought into corporate America to bring positive change. And what always lit me up was that, yeah, I could make companies millions, even billions of dollars, but at the end of the day, the people were happier. They were able to feel more present at work and deliver meaningful work. And so my passion really lied in that, but I found that more and more leaders actually, when I identified our opportunities and I was like, well, you know, let's go. And the teams were like, yeah, let's go, that the leaders would just hide the evidence, right? They felt like, oh, I should have known that, or, you know, like they you know, I think that the bigger the organization, the deeper the hierarchy, the more it's about, I have to know more than you. I have to command and control you. And I very, very struggled with that, to the point where I was let go, laid off, or the whole team was laid off so many times, bringing amazing change, that I went broke. I mean, I don't know how many times somebody can sustain, losing their job or their contract unexpectedly over and over and over again. And I spent 5 years in introspection writing a book about what is it that causes this to happen. And I just see such a perfect marriage inside of what you're speaking. And I believe the environment, like that's why I'm out in nature right now, is because if I'm in front of my computer, I will distract. I know that, right? So that I can be listening to this conversation in a deeper capacity. But I believe that like how something is designed or the environment you create, it's kind of like if you did have a meditative session, but you had a rock band playing in the next room, it might be difficult, right? So I believe that the very design matters.
I want to interrupt you for a moment.
Yeah.
Because I think you have an important question. And I want to ask you, what is the real question you have right now? Just take
so
a
the
moment.
Real question is
take a moment. Look inside. Just tell me in the most simple sentence, what's the most important question for you right now? Not about the outside, but about your inside.
how can I make a difference? How can I access them? How can I have them here? What's possible?
That's not a question that can be answered, but it's a question that needs to be opened up to see what are the underlying layers in you which will give you some kind of answer. You ask the question as if it could be answered. That's not a question that can be answered. It's a question that opens an exploration, and that's what's, I think, most important for you now, to find how you can really dive deeper and deeper into what's all the territory within that question. And one of in my chapter on purpose, there are two key questions, and maybe I just offer you those to take away. The first question is, what is the work that is mine to do? What is the work that is mine, specifically, intimately mine to do? And the second, in a way, deeper question is, what is it that is being asked of me now? And I just want to invite you to take those questions and feel into them, and feel into the not knowing, feel into the deeper and deeper listening, have a space for all the emotions that arise in you, also from your bruising experience. And then I believe you will find your way forward, because you have a lot of passion for what you want to do, and you have a big desire to serve, which is beautiful. And I would, for the next phase, put more attention on your inner process. And from that, I believe your way forward will clarify.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all the depth you bring.
Thank you so much, Dawn. I think we have time for one more question, and then we'll wrap. Simcha, I saw. I don't know if you still have a question or not.
I took my hand down because I realized that I
Okay.
wasn't sure it was a question.
I
But
think.
hi, Nicholas. Hi. My question was maybe a little bit similar to Dawn's, but it was about language. And maybe it's my own fear. That's kind of why I took my hand down, that I want to stop resisting the fear that I have. But when I think about bringing work like this to leaders in different kinds of environments, there's so much out there right now about wellness, and it's amazing all that's happening. But like language like stress reduction and resilience, there's these kind of buzzwords that I think people are more receptive to. And I think the reality is what you're teaching, Nicholas, is so beautiful and so deep. So I'm wondering, my question was like about how you would put what you're doing in language that meets people where they are. It might be the same work, but it uses different language to explain it.
Well, the obvious answer is a lot of the language is in my book. That is the language I speak to leaders. It really is. And I also want to acknowledge that, it's taken me a long time to be so uncompromising. I teach at, the world's #1 business school, and I go in, and pretty much the first thing I say is you're operating with about 20% of your full capacity, and you don't realize that. And they're like, what? But I then explain what I mean. And they understand what I mean, because it's very clear that that's true. So, and the language I use is in the book, but it's also about having the courage in a way, and the experience and the credibility to stand in front of a group. I don't do light. I don't do wellness. I don't do stress reduction. I don't do that. I don't do that because I think that's just like putting a Band-Aid on. It has a place, of course, but it's ultimately a Band-Aid. I don't do that. And if people don't want me, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
Even if I meet a CEO for coaching and I explain the depth we're going to go to, and he or she says, yeah, no, I want to do that, I say, go away and think about it. And then if you're really sure, we'll start working, because we're not going to do light work. We're going to do light work with a capital L, but we're not going to do shallow work together. So, but it takes time to build that courage.
Yeah, that's exactly what that's kind of why I took my hand out, but that gives me something to brew with a little bit. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Simcha. I want to, nice to meet you, nice to have you with us today. I do want to add to that, because, we definitely live in an era where there is a lot of access to a lot of different things that in the, coaching, personal development space. And in many cases, there is, for people, it takes time to be ready to do the work. So people may need to first read a book or get a meme or do a retreat or but we at Guidely believe that the actual work, when the rubber meets the road, is how you bring all that wisdom into your own life. How do you, to use that word, integrate that wisdom into your own life? And that's where the big, the heavy lifting becomes, and that's where you really need somebody like you that doesn't really. And I think part of the difference is that you, in all the interactions I've seen you have, it's always same, what do you say, eye level. There is not, even though I consider you a master, you don't talk to anybody as a master. You're going through your own journey, and you're here to share that journey with others. So there is no and it's such a profound difference from, you know, using buzzwords and light or shallow, or I don't want to title it. It's just part of that is prep work. So somebody may read 10 books before they're really ready to do the work.
Yes, it's beautiful what you say. I totally agree.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I wanna maybe an optimistic outlook before we wrap this, and you know, what do you see in our future? I know we're definitely in this friction time of, you know, separation and polarity and disconnection. What do you see?
I can say quite simply what I see. My sense is that we're in a time of collapse that's going to be even more painful than it already is, and will be global. And at the same time, I feel very clearly and strongly that I and you and many of us are part of, like, I see it as like a river that we're in that is birthing a new future. And it's a river, and either side of the river, the forest is burning. And I pay attention to that. Sometimes I don't feel overwhelmed by it, but I pay a lot of attention to the collapse. And I'm totally committed to serving what's coming in. And I think we need more and more groups and individuals, communities that can serve that. And we have to, by the way, for our own, because if we're reliant on the outer world for stability, we're really in trouble.
Yeah.
So we have to build these communities that I believe have to do all the levels of the work together, from the highest meditation to the most painful trauma work. And then we're really bringing in a completely new future. How I don't see my work as working to avoid the collapse, because I think it's inevitable and necessary, actually, however painful it is. And I have no idea how long, when this will all happen. I just see it in those terms. So I really do see something new and feel and totally commit to serving the new that is coming in.
Yeah. And we get the opportunity to write a new story.
Exactly.
So you guys are all on the forefront. Everybody that joined us today is definitely at the forefront, and I'm privileged to walk that path with you, my dear friend Nicholas. Thank you for your.
Well, it's amazing what you're doing. I told you before we started what you're doing at Guidely. I deeply honor. It's wonderful.
Thank you. We definitely feel that we're on a mission, and we feel the highest calling, and we have an incredible team and incredible support from, you know, our guides community and inspirational leaders like yourself, and we're really excited. Our next workshop is with Sunny Dawn Johnson on March 9th, right? That's our next one. And we'll talk about archangels and calling in our higher sources. So I'm really looking forward to that. I want to invite everybody to unmute, maybe put it in a gallery mode, and say great night, good evening, great day, wherever you are, on whatever time zone. I see that we're really global here.
Oh, great to see everyone.
Nicholas, thank you so much. I love you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
And,
Bye.
much love to Hadassah.
Thank you so much. Much
Thank you all
love.
for joining us
Bye
today.
bye.
Thank
Thank you very
you.
much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.